Are you a gamer struggling to lose weight? You started and stopped so many different programs and so many different times, and you feel just stuck on this hamster wheel where you keep yo-yoing the same 10 pounds. My name's Jordan, and I recently just hit an 80-pound weight loss goal after being stuck in that same hamster wheel that you've been in for years. And it all started 1 year ago when I decided to really challenge myself in July to where I lost 18 pounds within that month. I'm going to show you exactly what I did for that month to really lock in and to break off of that hamster wheel and see sustainable long-term results that I have been maintaining for over a year at this point. So I'm going to show you exactly what I did every morning, what my nutrition looked like, what my workouts look like, the type of mindset I had going into this, and the overall results and how that has led to a year of sustainable, maintainable results. 1 year ago, we were at a cookout with friends, and a friend of mine took this horrible picture of me that borderline traumatized me. At that point, I had spent 2 years spinning my wheels, and I had lost 10 pounds within those 2 years. I was constantly coming up with excuses, always putting myself on the back burner because I'm a business owner and I need to sacrifice my physical health for the betterment of the business, which ultimately just ended up being detrimental to all facets of life. And that picture was the catalyst that I needed to really kick my ass into gear and to really lock in. So I challenged myself to push myself as hard as I could for the month of July, knowing that July was going to be actually pretty busy for me, and that if I was able to stay locked in for that 1 month, that there really wasn't anything that life could throw at me that I couldn't navigate. And it also helped prove to me that I really did have control over my cravings and what I ate, and I didn't have to succumb to the cakes and cookies and snacks and pizzas and stuff like that that are all standing in front of me, especially when we went to family events. My morning routine was actually very simple. Every morning I would wake up when I needed to. That varied a little bit, but it really was not anything super early. And I would weigh in, and I would always take a progress picture. Even if I was somewhere that didn't have a scale, I would always take a picture in the mirror. And I did that because it helped me stay accountable to myself. I had to somewhat face the music by taking a picture of myself in the mirror. And that really helped maintain the motivation that I had to keep pushing. Because ultimately it was a picture that motivated me to kick my ass into gear. And so I wanted to maintain that by taking progress pictures. And I still do that today. I don't take a picture every single day. Probably 3 to 5 times a week, I step on the scale and I take a picture. And that really does help document the journey and maintain the momentum and accountability. Fun fact, I actually logged my food in my The Healthy Adventurers fitness and nutrition tracker. I do have this for sale somewhere. And if I find it, I'll put the link down below. Normally when I woke up, I wouldn't eat breakfast. I would wait about 2 to 3 hours before I had my breakfast. My breakfast was the same every single morning. I would have 1 cup of Oikos Pro yogurt, the vanilla. It had 23 grams of protein, and it honestly tastes pretty good. A lot of the other protein yogurts don't taste that good. Oikos is always a solid brand. And then I would put roughly 1 serving of the PB2 peanut butter powder, to where you're getting roughly the same amount of protein you would with normal peanut butter, but like 100 calories less in general, to where 2 tablespoons of that is around 70 calories, and 2 tablespoons of regular peanut butter is around 170 calories. And so you're getting 100 calories less, same amount of protein, and very similar taste. It's not as strong of a flavor, but it is definitely worth the trade-off by saving yourself 100 calories. And on top of that, I would have roughly half of a cup to 3/4 cups of old-fashioned oats, and I would mix that all together, and it would end up being like a thicker overnight oats. I liked it on the thicker side because it kind of tricked me into thinking that I was eating something akin to like a no-bake cookie. And if you wanted something that wasn't as thick and you wanted something a little bit more yogurt-y, I would say, then I would reduce the amount of oats that you put in or increase the amount of yogurt, knowing that you'll probably increase calories that way. And I would eat that pretty much every day. And then about 2 hours after breakfast, I would have a snack. And my snack, again, very consistent, pretty much every single day. I would have a protein bar and a meat stick. Protein bar, Pure Protein is easily the best protein bar brand that I have found. They have a large variety of flavors that really kind of fit every mood that you're going for, where there's some that are more on like the candy bar side, like your chocolate peanut butter, your pretty standard stuff. But then they also have a lot of dessert flavored, like sundae cone and their zigzag cake, I think is what they call their zebra cake one. They have cake flavors. And so big fan of them. Roughly 200 calories per bar with roughly 20 grams of protein, which is very solid. When I'm looking for a protein snack like that, I try to get 10 grams of protein per 100 calories, and those fall right in line with that. And then the meat stick was Mythical Meats meat sticks. I actually still have them right here. These bad boys, I love them. The D&D set that they have where they have one flavor for each individual class. So this particular pouch has 12 different flavors in there versus something like Chomps, where you're going to get the same fairly generic flavor across the whole pack. This pack, again, has 12 different flavors, a lot of exotic different meats like yak, camel, buffalo, elk. And then they have stuff like their warlock is honey ham pork. Very, very basic. But then their wizard is a chipotle and garlic beef with yak. A huge variety of flavors just within the one pack. And I'm a big fan of them. Obviously, I still eat them today. And if you want 10% off your first order, use the code and link below. Then after my snack, I would wait maybe another 1 to 2 hours and have my lunch. My lunch was actually a pre-made meal from a local meal prep shop that I used a lot, and it was really nice because when I was working, I didn't want to have to jump upstairs and figure out what I was going to eat or have to prep anything. And so having pre-made meals really cut down on my overall meal prep, and it helped me out a lot. The meals were also a large variety where sometimes there was steak and cheese ravioli with a little bit of sauce on it and some spinach. That was actually one of my favorite ones. And then they had your pretty typical stuff, like they might have some kind of chicken with pasta and some sauce. And they always tended to have a protein, some kind of pasta or carb, and some kind of vegetable in it. And they were all right around 3 to 4, maybe 500 calories with between 30 and 50-ish grams of protein. So pretty solid protein to calorie ratio, and they tasted really good. And we kept some of the stickers that had the ingredients on them because we liked the meal so much. So if you really struggle with meal prep, especially during lunch, and you catch yourself going to fast food because you don't have the time to make your own meals or you haven't prepped any meals beforehand, I really recommend doing some kind of meal prep service. I always like to support local businesses, and that way you know the food's probably going to be fresher than somebody that shipped it to you. And so that was a very solid option for me. After lunch, we would go probably about 3 to 4 hours before dinner. Dinner, there was a little bit more variety in what we made or what we ate. I knew that since I had a pretty regimented breakfast, snack, and lunch, that I had a little bit more wiggle room and freedom for dinner. But dinner followed a fairly similar structure across the board. We would have some kind of meat or protein, some kind of vegetable, and some kind of grain or carbohydrate. And some days, in all honesty, I would just turn ground beef into taco meat. I would have that with a little bit of cheese and then maybe a vegetable on the side. And that would be my dinner on some nights, where other nights we would maybe go out to eat and I would have some kind of lower calorie food, like maybe a chicken wrap or something like that, where I would eat half of it and take the other half home. And so that allowed for me to be able to go with the flow. If we were having a D&D or Magic night, I knew that if we went to Taco Bell, that I would probably just eat the taco meat that I had prepared. And I didn't need to actually order food from Taco Bell, but I would get like a Baja Blast Zero. So that way I was still participating in it. And I knew, since I was really zoned in at that particular month, that I didn't need to get fast food. This would be a good time to say that during this challenge, I made sure that I did not get any fast food. And that was a really big push for me because I cut out all fast food. I cut out all junk food. And that's not necessarily because I felt like I needed to be successful. I did it specifically for myself because I really wanted to challenge myself, because I felt like I was losing control over my cravings. And so I decided to nip everything in the bud and do somewhat of an elimination diet in that respect to prove to myself that I actually am capable of controlling myself over my cravings and that I have more power over my cravings than what I was giving myself for those past 2 years. And that meant if Tanya or friends wanted to go get fast food, I would go on the food run with them, but I would just get like a 0-calorie pop or soda if you're not from the Midwest, like Diet Coke or Baja Blast Zero. Those are my two go-tos. Also, Dr. Pepper Zero at Wendy's. And after all that, after dinner, if I was still craving something sweet, I would have maybe another protein bar and or a 0-calorie soda. Most often than not, it was a 0-calorie root beer because those have no caffeine and I didn't want the caffeine to mess up my sleep. That was what I ate throughout the day. I was also very consistent with what I drank. In the morning, I would drink roughly 16 ounces of water filled with a flavor packet that had 120 milligrams of caffeine and 1 scoop of creatine. I still drink this every single day. I don't like coffee. I think coffee tastes like shit. And so this pomegranate lemonade water flavoring is what I drink every day. As you can see, I already drank mine today. And I put creatine in there so that way I'm consistent with my creatine intake. And it helps with muscle preservation, muscle building, muscle strength, etc., etc. Creatine is one of the best supplements you can take. And nowadays, I add in roughly 3 spoonfuls of fiber just to help, keep things flowing. On top of that, in July, I was drinking 1 gallon of just plain water. I would have a container, I would have an insulated jug that was half of a gallon of 64 ounces, and I would make sure I'd go through that twice. I would try to get through it once by lunch and then have the second one in the second half of the day. That's kind of how I would time it. Sometimes I wasn't on par with that, so I'd be chugging water at the night or later in the night, and that would sometimes cause me to get up and take a piss a couple times at night. If you are really trying to increase your water intake, go a little bit slower than jumping right to a gallon, because your body's not going to know how to adapt to the extra water, and you're going to be pissing like every 30 minutes. There were times where we would go up north. We live like an hour away from our hometown. We'd have to stop at a pit stop. I just could not hold it within that 1 hour. That took me about a week or so to adapt to it. So I would say start off small and then work your way up. That was my nutrition and water. Now for my workouts, I challenged myself to do essentially 2 workouts a day that were around 45 minutes apiece. And I know that sounds pretty extreme, but 90% of the time it was just going for a walk in the beginning of the day or during my lunch break, and then at the end of the day. So I would do 2 45-ish minute walks each day. And normally the walks were like 2.5 miles. So nothing super crazy. I would plug in either listening to an audiobook or podcast or some kind of YouTube video and allow me to just get out of this same 4-wall environment and then just be able to kind of unplug a little bit and enjoy my time outside. I started off trying to do it before work, where I would get up an hour earlier and go for a walk, but I decided I didn't like that. And so I would go for a walk during my lunch break and then after work. And I felt like my walks after work were very therapeutic in a way, because it allowed me to really kind of check everything at the door and use that as a buffer to bookend the workday. Then I would use my walk as a way to kind of physically let out some of the stress that I had from work. On the days or times where I didn't go for a walk, I would maybe go for a run. I was working on doing a couch to 5K sporadically on my own, where I would just run as far as I wanted to and then walk the difference while still making sure that my walk run was 45 minutes. And I slowly built up my run economy there, my endurance there, and up to a 5K. Recently, I just ran 10 miles, which I thought was absolutely insane. And I run at least a 5K every time I go out for a run, all because I was laying that foundation 1 year ago. And in addition to that, I would do maybe 1 to 2 strength workouts in a week. Those weren't a priority for me. It was more getting outside, getting some fresh air, building my cardiovascular health, because my strength was pretty high, but my cardiovascular health was pretty low comparatively. And so I was focusing more on cardio than I was strength. And even now, I'm focusing more on getting outside and doing cardio than I am hitting the weights, because I tend to have, again, higher strength proportionately than my cardio health. So I want to improve my cardio health. And in all honesty, as much as I hate to say it, cardio health is more important for longevity versus strength, because, you kind of need your heart to live. And that was really it for my movement. There were times where if the weather was shitty, or if I was in a situation where I didn't want to go outside, I would hop on my stationary bike. I have a walking pad here. I went to different places I'll talk about here in a second, and I used a rower. So I just did what I could to make sure I got 45 minutes in. I didn't push myself to the limits every single time, but my goal was to just get up and get moving twice a day for 45 minutes apiece. And some days were harder than others. Some workouts were harder than others. But at the end of the day, I know that I hit 90 minutes of movement each day. So that was my entire routine, my morning routine: waking up, taking a picture and weighing in, making my morning coffee, if you will, drinking a gallon of water, getting my breakfast, snack, lunch, and dinner in addition to my 2 45-minute walks, where I try to get outside at least once a day. And all of that, in all honesty, was not super hard for me to do. The biggest challenge for me was just not getting fast food, or not turning towards the snacks and indulgent foods that I normally would turn towards. And I would constantly have to tell myself that, no, I'm not actually hungry. It's just those cookies look good and I don't need to grab a cookie every time I walk through the damn kitchen. And throughout that month, the biggest challenge that I had by far was 4th of July. And we went to my cousin's house, and they constantly always have cakes and cupcakes and cookies and all the other snacks and indulgent food there. And I knew that going into it. And so again, I came prepared. I had what I call a craving survival kit, where I bought a case of this 0-calorie Dr. Pepper cream soda. This is by far the best soda that I've been drinking lately. I've been on a kick for this for about a year. And then I also had my snack kit. I had the meat sticks and the protein bars. I took all of those with me. And believe it or not, my cousin actually had some fresh fruit, so I would eat apples when I was really craving stuff. And breakfast, I would eat what they had. A lot of times it was eggs and sausage and stuff like that. So I just had more eggs and some sausage. If they cooked burgers, I would do burgers with no bun. Not because carbs are inherently bad, but because for the same amount of calories, I could have 2 burgers with cheese and a little bit of barbecue sauce versus just 1 burger with a bun. And I'd rather eat twice as much of the meat because I like the flavor of the burger more than I like the flavor of the bun. So it just makes sense for me to eat burgers with no bun. Then if we went out to eat, again, I would just try to find something that was on the more whole food option. I wasn't super strict with that, but I would just make sure it wasn't something that is just like a greasy burger or chicken tenders or anything like that. And would do like maybe a grilled chicken wrap and then have half of that and save the other half for lunch the next day. And on the 4th of July, they had Qdoba catering, which open buffet style tends to be my kryptonite. I love Qdoba, but Qdoba is actually pretty solid because it allows you to make a burrito bowl versus an actual burrito. And since their tortilla shells are massive, you save yourself like 300 calories or something like that by just eating out of a bowl versus the burrito itself. And that's exactly what I did. I had to have what I normally would have in a burrito and I put it in a bowl and I felt good. I got to eat what I wanted and I didn't feel like overly stuffed and bloated after that particular meal, which was great because it was insanely hot that day. I remember specifically how hot it was. And going into this, because that was obviously July 4th, going into this challenge a week prior, I knew that that was going to be my biggest struggle. And I use that as a bit of a tipping point or a checkpoint, if you will, to say, if I can accomplish this, the rest of the month will be cake. And in all honesty, that was the case. I knew that I absolutely crushed it. I felt super accomplished after that 4th of July weekend and that the rest of the month was going to be very easy. And they even got to a point on the 4th of July weekend where we stayed up until like 4 o'clock in the morning just listening to music and everybody else was drinking. And I don't drink, so that wasn't a problem for me. We went to bed around like 4 o'clock in the morning and I was like, fuck, I never did my second workout. And so there actually was a rowing machine in the room that we were sleeping in. And so I threw on Friends and I hopped on the rower and I was rowing. Some points my eyes were closed. I was going super light. My heart rate I don't even think it broke over 90 because I was just going through the motions. But I did 45 minutes of rowing in a time where I absolutely would not have done that in the past. And that was because it was extremely important for me to maintain the exact momentum that I was doing. And it felt good. Again, I felt accomplished. I didn't run my ass into the ground during that. It was more or less just going through the motions and kind of treating it as like a way to kind of wind down. And I felt accomplished and I went to bed feeling accomplished. So I gave you the rundown of the program. I talked a lot about my mindset going into this, specifically challenging myself in ways that I don't normally would. And after that month, I lost 18 pounds. Although 18 pounds wasn't anywhere near where I wanted to be, because I've since lost another 50 pounds on top of that, and I still have probably another 10 more pounds to go before I hit my goal. If anything, it was a huge mental victory because it proved to me that I'm actually capable of having control over my cravings and putting myself on the forefront and making my health a priority versus constantly putting myself on the back burner and giving in and indulging to these cravings. Now, what does that all mean for you? Do you need to challenge yourself for the hardest month of your year and really lock in and not get fast food and drink a gallon of water a day and do 2 45-minute workouts outside? No. But what you can do is challenge yourself a little bit. Maybe do half of what I did or a quarter of what I did, where you know what your breakfast, snack, and lunch are going to be, and then dinner is a little bit more of a free-for-all than what mine was. And then maybe challenge yourself to drink half of a gallon of water a day and do one 30-minute bout of movement each day that can be inside, outside, whatever you want. And really focus on the temptation around cravings and the fast food run and going for a food run with the boys, or if you're having a magic night, everybody goes to get Taco Bell, being able to control yourself in that. You at least know that you have these contingencies or these backup plans for when you do go on a fast food run, knowing that you're going to be getting roughly 500 to 600 calories worth of food and that are going to be higher in protein versus a handful of burritos where a grilled cheese burrito alone is like 700 to 800 calories. Again, don't need to push yourself to the extreme. I did that because I felt like I really wanted to see what I was capable of. And in all honesty, it did really help catapult myself. I am down now to roughly 192 pounds and I started that month at 262 pounds. And so in 1 year, I have lost 70 pounds. I've lost 80 pounds, like I said, because it took me 2 years to lose 10 pounds. And so that did really help lay a strong, solid foundation for me, prove to myself that I am capable of achieving great results. And me being 192 is by far the lightest I have ever been, probably since high school, before I actually went over 200. I don't think I've been below 200 since I went over 200 in high school, which is, years ago. Now that I've laid it all out for you, you can pick and choose some things that you want to do, tweak and change it to fit your lifestyle. Like I said, and it doesn't have to be extreme, but use this as maybe a call to action to actually challenge yourself for the next 30 days to do some things that you don't normally do. Push yourself to do some more movement, push yourself to eat more whole foods, more prepped meals, and less fast food and less junk food, and push yourself to drink more water versus sugary, calorie-filled drinks, and you'll probably be very shocked with how much weight you lose and how empowered you feel knowing that you're able to accomplish these things in just a short amount of time. And that can be a good foundation for you to really keep the progress and the momentum going. If you want a little bit more structure for this next 30 days, this 30-day challenge that you're going to do for yourself, or even a full year, this Healthy Adventures 1 Year Beginner's Handbook is a great resource. It has 170 plug and play workouts. It has a cooking and shopping guide, like I talked about with our dinners. Our dinners followed this structure here: proteins, vegetables, grains, and other forms of carbohydrates. And if you're a true tabletop fan, you can just roll the dice and see what RNGesus has to say. And so, a lot of healthy food options in here. There's 40 high protein recipes. There's a lot of other buttery goodness in here. Besides the cooking and shopping guide, there's a sleep guide. There's a starter kit in there that you can kind of use for like a week to kind of use as a jumping off point. And again, 330 pages of girthy goodness, all completely free in the Discord. Join the Discord. The link is also in our Instagram. So if you follow us on Instagram, the link is in my bio, and all completely free. I just want you to be happy and healthy, as Dr. Mike says, but I want you to be able to reclaim your health, lose weight, build the confidence to finally become the main character of your own life. And this 1 Year Beginner's Handbook can be a great way for you to start that journey. If you found this useful, don't forget to do all the things I tell you to do. Like and subscribe, smash that button. That's all I have for today, and I'll catch you on the next one.